This is the review for the quiz, Chapter 5. This is Problem 8. Before I stop this problem, I want to remind you that for Ln, the base is an e, so this really would say the opposite of Ln of e to the x plus 1 power. And then I also want to remind you that e is approximately 2.7. You have to memorize that. And that e to the negative 1 power is 1 over 2.7, but of course that's ridiculous. We can't really work with a 1 over 2.7, so we're going to approximate that as 1/3. So that's important to us as we're working through this problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this out of log form and put it in exponential form. So remember, f of x is really just y, so y equals negative ln of x plus 1. Now I have to isolate L of n, so I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 1. So I get negative y, or the opposite of y, equals Ln of x plus 1. Now, because the base that's invisible is that e, when I put it into exponential form, I say base of e to the negative y power. The e goes with what's not with it, which is the negative y, equals x plus 1. And I want x by itself this time, so I subtract 1 from both sides. And I get e to the negative y power minus 1 equals x. So there's my exponential function. Now I'm going to make my t-table. Excuse me. So I make my t-table. And this time I'm not going to put x values in. I'm going to actually put in y values, because the y is not by itself this time, it's the x by itself. So for my y values, I'm going to put in a 0 and then go down 1 and up 1. So now I'm finding e to the negative y power, which would be the opposite of negative 1, which is e to the first power, equals x. Oh, I forgot my minus 1, sorry. E to the first power minus 1 equals x. And then remember that e to the first power is approximately 2.7 minus 1 equals x. So x is approximately 1.7. Now we're doing e to the negative y, which is e to the 0 power minus 1 equals x. But anything raised to the 0 power is 1, so I got 1 minus 1 equals x. So x equals 0. And then e to the negative 1 power minus 1 equals x, and e to the negative 1 power is 1/3 minus 1 equals x, and 1/3 minus 3/3 gives us a negative 2/3, so a negative 2/3 goes in our t-table. Now that we've got our t-table completed, we're ready to graph, and we've got 1.7, which is a little bit smaller than 2, and negative 1, so there's my first value, and then 0, 0, and then a negative 2/3, 1, which is right about there, and there is my exponential, my log formula function really, and its decay, and that's the answer.